Welcome to the Gentleman Podcast.
Welcome to the Gentleman Podcast. I almost forgot how we start off our videos. I was
That's
like,
right.
what am I gonna say?
You love and appreciate everybody.
Yes, yes. If you're here for the nth time, and now I really don't know how
Like
many videos
15,
we
I
have.
think.
15? Yeah. We love and appreciate you. We apologize for not making a video in a really long time. Um, but yeah, we hope you like this one. Today we'll be talking about how you go about training, or how we go about training a junior resource that just joined the team, and maybe knows very little about Magento, or knows something about Magento but is super inexperienced. And with that, I'll let you do start.
Little old me.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me think here for a second. So this topic, junior developers on the team, how to train them or whatever, because there's kind of like two angles. One is as a junior developer, how do I progress? And I mean, do you go directly from junior to senior, or is there sophomore in
I
there?
I would definitely say that you are definitely like an intermediate slash just someone who can contribute and is independent. But I think senior is more like you're at the point where you can train other people and make decisions and take requirements, and you know understand scopes well enough for you to like know whether or not we're going to hit the deadline based off of whatever criteria, right? So I think there's that. And then there's people who could do that, but they don't want to kind of learn the soft skills and communication skills, and they don't like being in meetings, right? So then they probably don't get to that senior developer status. Maybe they have the potential, but they don't care for it, I guess. But I
Yeah.
mean, I guess that's how you depends on how you define what's a senior developer, right? Versus like a tech lead. I think some people define those two things differently. In my
Yeah.
mind, I
I mean,
think there's some overlap.
I think there was a couple of years there where I called myself like a front end developer. I didn't say junior. I didn't say senior. I was just a front end developer. So I think
Yeah,
that's like I didn't call out like intermediate or anything. I just didn't go after jobs that were like senior or junior. So I guess
yeah,
that's probably the middle step. But for me, like I have to say, um, okay, like personally, I never had I don't recall, and I hope I'm not forgetting this, but like a job where there was like a team and there was some kind of a lead on that team who took me under their wing and like ushered me into some new technology. Um, it didn't go that way for me. And I mean, the other thing is like I so for I think 4 years ago now, I was working at an agency. That was like right when Magento 2 came out, or was three, 3 or 4 years ago. And at that agency, the policy was no junior devs. They were not allowed to hire anyone junior dev. So didn't have any experience with that. At the job I currently have for the last 2 years, we don't hire junior devs. It's like you either know Magento or you got to go learn it and then come back and talk to us. So I don't have a ton of experience in this area. I do have some ideas though. Why don't you go for a minute here and
you're saying you don't feel like anyone that was hired was inexperienced and not ready to contribute to the code base right away. No.
man, not on my team. um,
But okay, I won't say anything about that. Um,
are you talking about you, Steve B?
well, I mean, I feel like I I definitely wasn't like super green. I definitely like didn't absolutely not know like anything, but I fell into that bucket for sure.
I
And then there
agree.
were other people, but I won't, yeah, there were I think there were at least two other people that kind of fell in that area, at least while I was there. I don't know what happened before and after,
Yeah,
right?
so I mean, and that's the thing too, right? Like, uh, yeah, I don't know, man. I think, um, so for you, you have been brought on onto the back end team.
Yeah, and so you didn't like I
I
had
mean, I would
yeah.
put you in the bucket though, like you were a junior dev, um, which was awesome. I was so stoked. I was like, yeah, we're bringing on a junior dev. Okay. But the thing is, you didn't come in not knowing anything about Magento. Like you knew plenty. You could contribute. I felt like within the first couple of weeks, you were writing modules that I didn't like, and it was amazing.
um yeah, so okay. I'll take I'll go in the direction. Well, I'll take the lead here because I'm actually like training someone,
Please.
right? And like I've kind of through that process of kind of like figured out what works and what doesn't work, right? Just from getting feedback and then just from the developer himself and then just seeing the results, right? And actually, now that I think about it, I've had two people under my wing or under my wings in the last 6 months. Right, one under each wing. So what I noticed, so the first thing is like when you work on a small team and you're like you make the decision to hire a junior dev, the first mistake I think people tend to make is, okay, we're going to hire this person, but who's going to train them because everybody's busy doing their things, right? And then deadlines don't go away just because this new person comes on board. So before you go out there and hire a junior resource, you should actually like have a training plan for them, um, or like kind of create like what's the like a roadmap for them, right? So
An
that
onboarding. Yeah.
exactly like kind of figure out what do you think this person needs to know, whether it might not even be like Magento specific, but just like all the business rules, you know, who who is important in the company, who do they report to, what area of the code base they're going to be expected to contribute to within 30 days, within 60 days, etc. Right? And then just having like um, what I found was like once this resource was in front of me, I was like, okay, I know I know where to go and search for materials to learn about or documentation to learn about a specific topic, right? But then I found that like in the midst of having the conversations, I would say, hey, do you know this or do you know that? And I would just have to go and find a random tutorial online versus the next time around I want to just have like a list of good resources to share with them and let them know, okay, I think you should know, you should probably go to I don't know, Code Academy or Swift Otter or etc. Right? These are the set of resources that I've prepared for you, and I expect you to do this on week one. The other thing I've kind of concluded is that you probably, if someone's a junior resource, you probably shouldn't give them tasks right away, right? No matter how simple in your head the task is to them, right? Because you have no idea what they do or do not know. So you might think, oh, this task is simple, and then you assign it to them, and they end up, just getting frustrated and spending hours and hours and hours on it, and get it, and they end up getting nowhere. So you kind of, if they're a fresh graduate, you kind of have to give them, I would say, at least a good um two like 14 to 30 days for them to get their heads wrapped around. I don't know how do you create a module? What's the controller? That type of stuff. Because in college, I mean, you learn object-oriented program, what's a class, blah, blah, blah. But then you come into Magento and there's so many different things that you need to know before you can even like solve the simplest task, unless it's going to be, I don't know, like maybe make a change in admin to a CMS block. At least on the back end, that's how it is. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, it's just such a huge learning curve. Like, even I could take an advanced web developer who's been working in, I don't know, let's say Laravel backend with a React or a Vue front end or something like that, and put them on a Magento project as like a junior Magento developer, and there's going to be, I would say, weeks of non-productivity,
Exactly.
just getting to know what is all going on in there. And then even when they start making progress, let's say we have some simple tasks, like you said, updating a CMS block or something, there's probably going to be quite a bit of code review and stuff that goes into that too, because I don't, like, for the front end side of things, I don't just take normal code. Like, I want my CSS a certain way. I kind of want the JavaScript to work a certain way, and formats and styles. So, I mean, there's also the problem that you run into then in that case is, well, we also got to get this stuff done. So you kind of
Exactly.
just start saying, well, okay, I got to get some corners, or I got to get some work out of this person eventually here. And I
Yeah.
think with junior people, pretty quickly, um, are they passionate about the thing? Are they learning a lot in their spare time, to the point where you can tell, hey, this time I'm talking to them, they seem to know a lot more, or have better questions than last time.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess that's like, setting the right the point you're making is you have to kind of set the right expectations. Um, because thinking expecting like what I've seen is like a lot of companies make this mistake. Uh, a lot of companies, the only reason they're hiring a junior resource is because they want to save money, right? Everybody wants a guy that can jump in there and just start wrangling sharks and killing tide. Well, you know what I mean. I'd say that, but you know what I mean.
Careful.
Like so from my perspective, I think most companies want to hire a seasoned person who can jump in there and start to get stuff done ASAP.
Well, I mean, hang on though, because like
Mm-hmm.
on the front end, right? At least the way it used to be was there were jobs
Mm-hmm.
for juniors. Like, we
Yeah.
had layout, CSS and HTML, and just go do this all day, um, and you'll be good. Um, Something floating around over here. Feels weird.
it's a ghost.
I have to look back at the camera. But nowadays it seems like you literally almost, there's not that much that someone who doesn't know a lot can do right off the bat. It's almost
Yeah.
like you have to go to college and then a boot camp, and then you're kind of sort of ready to start. Whereas back
Yeah.
in when I started, it was more like, hey, after your boot camp or whatever, or college in my case, uh, I could go full time and do just HTML and CSS, which wasn't easy, but at least it was something I could just learn in college and then go do all day. Um,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I feel like that kind of has gone away to a certain degree, and you have to come into it knowing more, which kind of sucks. And I mean, especially on the front end too, like everything that has progressed and become modern about it has made it harder to get into it. So like you used to be able to go and view source and just start reading through and like, oh, there's the CSS, here's the HTML, and there's like some JavaScript in here. Now everything is pre-bundled and or post-bundled, whatever, and spit out by a compiler basically. So you go to read it and you're just like, this doesn't make any sense to anybody ever, and it just only makes sense to the browser, which
Yeah,
like basically all the stuff that makes sense is kept on the developer's computer.
yeah,
And what gets bundled and created and spit out to the web, that part of it's not easy to go back through and see like what's going on here.
exactly. I mean, like now there's like standards, right? There's if you're gonna work on something, there's a framework or a library, right? It's not just a vanilla language. You can't just write. You can't just know PHP. You have to know the associated frameworks, right? And every framework comes with a learning curve. Magento, I think, being at the top of that
Yeah.
learning curve.
Yeah, and I would say what would be awesome out of a junior is someone who does know their fundamentals really well.
Mm-hmm.
They're
Yeah,
gonna just have such a better time learning the higher level abstractions and stuff.
yeah, yeah. It's hard to understand like concepts like MVC and dependency injection and stuff like that if you barely understand object oriented programming or
Or
just
for loops.
yeah, yeah. So like what I've noticed is like a lot of companies they want that uh senior resource or mid-level resource, but maybe they don't have the budget for it, so then they try to hire a junior. Like in in sometimes it works out, like if you have a stack that's not too complicated. But then if you just throw somebody in Magento, I don't see how the sink or swim scenario works out. Not unless you're like ready to be like super patient, right? You gotta have the right expectations, or the person's just gonna quit.
Yeah.
um, yeah. Uh, so yeah, if you're hiring a Magento developer, you got to have the right expectations. You just got to know that, other than doing some admin tasks, this person is not going to be contributing much for a good little while, even if they're highly motivated, right? Um, at least I'm speaking from the back end, and I
No,
think
you're
it
right.
still applies. Yeah, yeah. I think it applies to the front end also. I mean, and we talked about this so many times. Um, just getting your local environment up and running is just so difficult if you have no guidance. And so that I would say that's my other point. I have really good documentation about regarding getting that environment up to date. What I ran into was, okay, I had some documentation that for getting Magento 2.3 up, and then we did a recent upgrade, and then the resource started, and then so now we were on 2.4.2. I made the changes, and I made the changes locally because I knew how to make those changes on the fly, but then I didn't update the documentation. So then I'm like, hey, can you use this documentation to set up a local environment? And then they're running into all these issues, and I'm like,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
okay, I forgot to update this to MariaDB 10.2, and then you have to change the version of PHP, and Composer does some weird stuff, and you have to downgrade it to Composer 1.
And that's not even just junior devs. That's
Yeah,
hiring anybody. Every time I onboard a new developer, I always have to, I guess, get reminded. I never seem to remember ahead of time. This is going to take a long time because just like you said, as soon as you get the new person in the chair, well, maybe you realize, or maybe you're better at this than me, but it's like, oh, I have a bunch of work to do. I have to rewrite this documentation. I have to just answer a bunch of questions. I have to get them kind of like oriented to the work culture, where to find everything. And it doesn't ever seem that like I get it fully right, because every time I do it, I'm like, I'm gonna systemize this. Here we go. I'm making the documentation. I'm gonna make it all easy for next time or whatever. And then next time rolls around, and I'm like, oh, everything changed. I have to redo this part and that, and it's just it takes up at least half of my week. I feel like for a couple of weeks, of
Exactly.
getting that new person situated. And it's like they're like a baby bird for a little while, and you just have to feed them, or else it's like, because the whole point of adding someone is you need more people. Like things need to happen, but
We're-
then what you do is you slow everything down. So it's like
yeah,
it's a it's a long-term play, adding people. Short term, you're slowing things down. I'm sorry, it
yeah,
sucks because
for sure. Because if you don't give that person anything to do, if
bye
somebody
bye.
does, well, if you don't stop to like make sure this person is on the right track and they know what they need to be doing, then they're just there, right? And then you're just prolonging the process of them getting to the point where they can contribute. But the whole point of hiring them is for them to contribute. So it's like, I have this launch in a couple days, but we just hired this new guy, right? And it's like, should I respond to his message and get on a call with him, or should I focus on this thing? And you kind of just have to do this balancing act. But that goes back to the original point. You can't just hire people during random points in your development cycle, and you can't hire them without a plan, right? You need to have a plan. You need to know, okay, when we hire this guy, we want him to do X, Y, and Z, or this guy or girl. I mean, I don't know. For some people, guy
This
encompasses
resource,
this this
you keep
person.
using this word resource. It's so dehumanizing, Stevie. You're obviously at the very top of a company who just thinks of people as resources.
No, that's not what I meant.
No,
That's
I know. I do
this.
the same thing. I use the word because you know what it is that you do resource planning, which just
Yeah,
means
a,
you have a certain like a people are a resource,
yeah.
but then you start calling people a resource. It's like,
Human,
wait,
human, human resources. It's
oh,
right.
there you go.
This valuable human resource. This valuable human resource. That's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, you should, man.
VHR. This
VHR. Okay.
this VHR comes in, and everybody wanted someone to come in, and then they had no plan to how to get this person up to speed. And then now it's kind of like the person's there not learning because nobody has time to teach them, and there's no template or anything set up. And it's like, well, this it takes way longer, and this project that we needed the person on ends up being done, and the person didn't contribute to it, and they don't start contributing until
Now,
the next project.
can I ask you something? And feel free to say I'm not going to talk about that. But has it worked out? Like, have you added these junior developers, and now there's one who's like a badass and really helping?
So one person is no longer on the team. One
Okay.
person has really improved, and yeah, is they have less than 6 months of work experience. So I mean, they're not like you know building a app, rebuilding the app in PWA or anything like that. But then they're able to come into a meeting and understand what's going on. They're able to do simple tasks, write some documentation, et cetera, et cetera. And then I can see the progress from like day one versus now in terms of like how much theory they understand. So so one, as you pointed out, they were motivated. And then two, I kind of like noticed all these things that I'm talking about that shouldn't be done or should be done, or things that I kind of like learned on the fly. And unfortunately, I had to experiment on these two people. And hopefully, the next time I bring in new people, you know, uh, you know, I'll keep those things in mind, and it'll be a smoother process. But overall, I think I was able to see what's working and not working pretty quickly and adjust to get the results that I wanted.
So you, at the same time they were a junior program, you were a junior leader, and you had
Yes.
learned, and I love it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, like you don't think that um you don't think about those things when bringing someone on board unless you've done it some before, right? You
Yeah.
just assume like, okay, yeah, we're gonna hire this person, and then it's like when the person is in front of you, you realize, oh crud, there's stuff that I need to do to make this person, this VHR, you
Yes.
know, get them to the point where they can actually contribute.
And honestly, the big first one I feel like is setting up the local development environment.
Yeah,
It's, I mean, even for me, when I first dealt with Magento 2, it was a monumental task. I felt like, because what was happening was I had been running Magento 1 in like XAMPP or MAMP or something. And then it's like you get to Magento 2 and that's not really feasible anymore. So
hmm
now you need Docker or some containerized like VMware or something.
hmm
Um, so now you're learning, for me anyway, it was Docker plus Magento 2. And if something was wrong somewhere along the way, it's not like at the time anyway, there wasn't some tutorial like, here's how you set up Magento on Docker. It was kind of like, here's Docker, here's Magento 2, have fun. And so like it could have been anything. I had no idea what is the thing that's not clicking here. Is it something I'm doing
yeah.
on Magento 2 or Docker? So there's just like a lot to learn all at once if you're not familiar with those two technologies.
So I'm proud to say that the junior dev that we're talking about is kind of, as you know, like I spend a lot of time playing around with Docker and understanding, how to get it to work well with Magento,
Oh yeah,
and that's
you're
one of the
a complete Docker nerd.
things. So I've been able to impart my Docker nerdness or nerdiness onto this junior dev, and he's able to help even more experienced developers set up their local environments using Docker.
That's
Um,
awesome, man.
and he's able to write documentation, and whenever like we upgrade to a new version of Magento, he knows what steps need to happen in order to make the transition pretty seamless. So um,
Wow,
yeah.
that is awesome. I mean, okay, I think we have to wrap it up soon, but let me ask you this, Stevie. You were a junior dev,
Mhm.
starting off in Magento on a pretty intense dev team. Do you have any tips uh, for people in that situation? Or
um like you mentioned, you gotta kind of you gotta be hungry. A lot of junior devs have this idea in their mind that, I'm gonna graduate, and then, I'm gonna go work on this big team, and then there's gonna be this I don't know, uh dev leader that's just gonna hold your hand
a
and
mother hen? Yes.
exactly like just, you know come and save you from the bugs and everything else, and just kind of like walk you through everything. But once you actually get into industry, and especially when you're working as a Magento developer, you're working for smaller companies that just don't have teams that are big enough to just dedicate someone to developing you, and they don't have a real training program. They're expecting you to get up to speed relatively quickly. um so with that, you kind of have to take it upon yourself to learn as much as you can outside of work, or even during work, right? Try to make sure you communicate, what level you're at, because a lot of times, people will assume you're at a higher level than you are, and then now that time where you could have been learning and just taking things slowly, you're having to deal with bigger problems that a junior developer shouldn't be having to deal with, and it actually stunts your growth, right? So managing expectations and always communicating what you do and don't understand, I would say that's the biggest, that's one thing. Also, yeah, just being hungry and working outside of you know outside of work hours to learn new concepts, and just look at what the junior developers, sorry, the more senior people are working on, the issues we had that week. You don't directly, you're hopefully you're not directly responsible for hitting any deadlines in your first couple of weeks, and you just look at the problem and you just analyze it and say, okay, what do I need to know in order to tackle the problem that the rest of the team is currently working on, right? That's kind of what how I would decide what to study, right? Um, so, and then, I mean, um, I did have people um, within the team that when they were available, they did help me. So the thing is just to kind of be humble, right? Don't get frustrated because people aren't available. I think generally people want to help, but they have responsibilities and obligations, and you just have to be patient, and yeah, be nice to them, and they will help you, right? Even though it's not even if it's not like 100% of their time, they'll give you 10% of whatever time that they, the 10% of time that they have. If you are not, if you show that you're motivated, if you show that you're actually putting in the work and that you're growing, someone will give you some extra attention within that team, assuming they have the bandwidth. So yeah,
Yeah,
those are
I
my
mean,
points.
yeah, you make a really good point. Like, um, at whatever job you get, maybe there's not. I mean, like, I would hate to think that some new junior developer is going to get put onto a team or get some job where literally everyone's burnt out and kind of hates it, because in that case, it would be really kind of hard to get people to at least be interested also in the things that you're doing. But for the most part, wherever you join up on, if there's some sort of team, you're going to be surrounded by like-minded geeks who are interested in similar technologies. So if you can geek out with them a little bit or study something like you said, I'm looking into the thing you guys are all looking into right now. And that way you could ask, questions relating to what they're doing. They're going to geek out with you a bit. So that's a cool way. It's not exactly
Yeah,
like a mentorship situation. It's just we're all interested in this. We're all working on it right now, and you're the junior dev, so you might as well be in the mix a
hmm
little bit in the conversations and stuff. So that's a really good. It's a really good point.
yeah, yeah. Nobody's gonna like um, invite you to their house and like you're gonna work on code until 3 a.m. like in the movies or something. People have other responsibilities. At least that's not how it happened to me.
It
They're gonna
happens, dude.
be people, huh?
That
It
that
does
exists.
happen, but
Yeah, because
huh?
like back in LA, I used to hang out with a group of people who did Drupal, and
Mm-hmm.
they had like a co-op, like co-working space, and I don't think anybody actually chilled there till 3 a.m. writing code, but they hang out pretty late sometimes. Like they were really interested in the topic, partying.
Yeah.
Out there smoking and drinking, and come back in, write some more Drupal. And it's just like, hey, cool. That's actually how meetups are a lot. And I do recommend if you can get into interesting meetups for junior devs, that's a good way to network and
Yeah.
meet people who are interested.
Yeah, and I brought this point up before on other topics. Try to get engrossed or immersed in the community as much as possible. The Slack, the Magento engineering Slack channel helped a lot. It was
Yeah.
like finding gold. It's like going on Slack Overflow, Stack Overflow. It said Slack Overflow. Going on Stack Overflow, man, the chances of somebody responding to your Magento question are pretty slim. So you got to try to get as many allies within whatever your stack or technology is, and then they'll kind of point you in the right direction in terms of like where to get the best resources, because Stack Overflow is like by default, but then there's other things within certain niches that you won't know as a junior developer to look into unless like you get really immersed in the industry and you reach out to people. And again, people aren't gonna just have hours and hours of time to just spend coding with you, at least in most cases, but they'll give you little tidbits that'll make a world of difference.
Yeah. And did you know Slack is actually an acronym?
No, I did not.
You didn't know that. Okay. End of the video. Time to learn something new. It stands for Searchable Log of All Communications and Knowledge. I'm not making that up.
Oh wow, did you just Google that?
Well, I had to Google it, but I knew that Slack stood for some crazy word. It's not just
Is I assumed it just I never like gave it any thought. I wonder if Uber means something.
Uber does mean something. It's a German word. It
Universal
means super.
universe. No. I mean, like, is it an acronym also?
No. Uber is just a German word.
But no. But what does Uber mean? What does Uber mean?
It means super. Super duper.
Okay.
Like the philosopher
Well,
Nietzsche, he wrote about the Ubermensch, right? Which is like a superhuman. Have you heard of Nietzsche?
Okay. I've heard the name before, but I do not know of his yeah.
He's whack.
Yep.
Don't look into him too much.
Interesting.
Sorry.
No, I'm gonna take a look after the call.
So Nietzsche is very
Okay.
like he wrote about an Ubermensch, which is a super human, and it's supposed to be like once you don't believe in God anymore, right? Because he's very, very atheistic, then you can become the Ubermensch, right? Which is the superhuman being who doesn't. I don't know. You might look it up. It's all very. But Uber means super. Okay, I know that in German.
Okay. Um, that's that. No, but the Slack one,
Dude.
like, I hate that I never even like thought to look it up. I just took it at face value, but whatever.
Yeah, I read it in some weird comment. They're like, "Didn't you know?"
Yeah, you didn't go and look that up.
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
I sometimes I think to myself like I should be more curious that way. Like after I learned something like that, I'm like, man, how come I didn't think of that? But I didn't. I can't think of everything.
Yeah. But cool. I think I think we're good on this episode.
Oh yeah, it was a
Thank you
great
guys.
episode. It's great to see you, Steve B. Good luck with your junior
Likewise.
devs. Or your resources. Sorry.
My human resources.
You're
My
very valuable.
human resources. Yeah. Thank you guys for watching. Hope to see you next time. Leave a like, a comment, subscribe. Nice. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
and I'm
think
gonna
that's
try to
it.
isolate that
Bye.
ghost from the earlier. I'm gonna put it in a special frame. Peace.
Peace.